Welcome to Beyond the Numbers. I'm Elizabeth Love Morrison, and this is my dad, Paul Love, the founder of Love Financial Group, where we discuss life, money, and transitions. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing educational expenses and all the different topics associated with that. So as we transition from one school year into the next school year, education expenses are something that a lot of families are thinking about. So it's not just for the parents of school-age children, but also grandparents and maybe even the child themselves as they go off to college. How are they going to afford the cost of education? And then all the ancillary things that come with that, maybe housing at a university or school supplies. So with proper planning, saving for education really can be something that is attainable. And today we're going to flip things a little bit, and my dad is going to be asking me the questions. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So Elizabeth, you're the parent of a soon-to-be 14-year-old and an 8.5-year-old son. So this is something that's on your mind and in your future.
That's right.
And I'm done with it. So the first question, with the thought of higher education expenses, while they may seem overwhelming, where do you suggest people start?
That's a great question, and I get that question a lot, both from parents and grandparents. I will say it starts with a conversation on what you want education to look like for your child. So people have different ideas of what that is. But if you don't know what the end goal is, then it's hard to know how much you need to save. So this is a common one that I get. Let's say that you want your child to go to a 4-year university. Okay, well, is it going to be public or private? Do you want, as the parent or grandparent, to pay for all 4 of those years? Do you want the child to have to work some or maybe earn a scholarship? So there's some questions to think about when I'm talking about saving and planning for the future. So let's assume that your child, you want to be able to provide the opportunity for them to go to a 4-year university, and you want to pay for the whole thing. So I want to give you some numbers. This is today's numbers, so if you have a child that's young, the cost of a university will go up over time. So including room and board for 4 years, college costs in a public university are somewhere between $100,000 and $125,000. Now that's for the full 4 years. And accounting for inflation, that number rises to roughly $125,000 to $150,000 in 10 years. So that would be in 2036. That same cost of education for a private university is around, in today's dollars, is around $250,000 to $320,000, which is a significant difference from public. And then in 10 years may end up being between $300,000 and $400,000. So those numbers alone can be overwhelming for a family. And so it's important to kind of back into that. What can you do today to be able to help your child afford the university in the years ahead?
Those numbers are quite large, even compared to when you went to school.
Yes.
You went to Baylor University, a private school, and when you began, the Baylor University was around $25,000, $27,000 a year, while the public college was around $12,000 to $14,000.
That's right. It's really grown in expense over the past 10 years and continues to rise.
Exactly. So most parents and grandparents look at their expenses, and it's one of those things that has outpaced inflation. So in knowing that that expense is ahead of somebody, what is the best way to, in your opinion, to start saving for college?
So my advice would be to start as soon as possible. And that can seem overwhelming to some people, or like it's really far off. Why do I need to start the day my child's born? But if you were to put in $50 a month over the next 17 to 18 years, that, along with compounding and investing, has the potential to really grow over time. As your child gets older, you may want to put closer to $100 or $200 a month. You may want to grow that monthly amount, but starting early and monthly, so it's that consistency that I talked about in a previous episode, being consistent over time will build and grow. I also get the question asked a lot, I have more than one child, should I have separate accounts for my children? And while there can be some variables factored into this isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. I would say yes. So you have that pot of money set aside specifically for that child in their 4 years.
Okay, that makes sense. So you alluded to this, and we all know that if you begin earlier investing, the more you have a higher probability of having more money when you need it. But what is your advice on when and how much should someone start contributing to a 529?
So let me back up and explain a 529 plan. So we typically recommend 529 plans for higher education expenses. So it used to be just for college and university tuition. Under the Secure Act that was passed in 2020, that was brought in to include primary and secondary education. So if your child is going to a private school, an elementary, junior high, or high school, you can also use this 529 plan to fund that. Most people use it to save for university college expenses. So I would recommend, depending on the age of your child, if your child is between birth and 2 years old, I would recommend starting with $100 a month. That's a very affordable amount for most people to put in there. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So you have that automatically going in every month and you don't really think about it. As that child grows, by the time that they hit, 11 and 12, so they're about to enter into junior high, you'll be surprised at how much that has grown over time. And then at that point, I would tell you to assess. You may have a slightly better idea, probably not until high school, but maybe increasing that to $150 or $200 a month until they get to high school, and that's probably not even their junior or senior year, until you know what college is going to look like, are scholarship opportunities available, that sort of thing. But that's what I would recommend somebody start with, is around $100 a month.
Okay. So the next question is, what expenses does a 529 plan actually cover?
Yes, that's a great question. So a lot of people think it's just tuition alone. That is not the case. It's a broad umbrella for educational expenses. So it can also include room and board, obviously tuition. I know people don't buy textbooks anymore, but all the online materials that you need for school. I've had people ask, can it cover transportation to get to school or buying my child a car so they can drive to school? That question, I don't know. You'll have to ask your CPA that. But it is a broad umbrella of what that, and also room and board.
Right. Computers, things that are usually used in the educational.
Correct.
Handheld calculators, things of that nature. Should be covered.
Yes.
With that. Just a side note, you're talking about time. So I have a neighbor on our street. They had been saving in a 529 plan for their daughter. She got into A&M and is working towards her nursing degree. She'll know in her sophomore year if she gets into nursing school or not. But her mother was sitting around with some friends, and they were talking about college cost. And the mother is an accountant, so she is very close to her money and counts her pennies very carefully. But she was shocked that some parents said, I don't know how we're going to pay for this. She said, how can you look down the road and know that this expense may be a possibility in 18 years and just wake up and not even know about it?
Right. There are advantages to planning, and this is one of them. If you save small amounts from a very early age of your child, by the time they get to college, you're not going to have to make these large financial sacrifices that you may have to if you wait.
And even if you don't 100% fund it, just think if you have it 40% funded, you can use that money along with your current income and not have to send a kid out into the world with all kinds of loans.
That's right. And one other thing I did want to touch on, another advantage of the 529 plan is that that money inside that account grows tax-free and is also tax-free when you withdraw it for educational expense purposes. So the difference between doing the 529 plan versus just a general brokerage account or maybe a savings account, you have it in some high yield savings or something, is that the brokerage account, you're gonna have to sell stocks and pay capital gains tax, whereas the 529 plan, you don't have to worry about federal taxes if you're using it for educational expenses.
Perfect. So what about other relatives, grandparents? Can they help fund a 529?
Absolutely. So you can do it one of two ways. If the grandparent wants to contribute to a 529 plan that maybe the parents have already set up, you can do it that way. So I have some friends who, their grandparents want to give gifts to their grandchildren at Christmas or their birthdays or whatever the case may be. And, toys are fun, but they don't last that long as the kids get older. And so they write a check and put it in their 529 plan that the grandchild will then get to use when they go to college. Another alternative is the grandparents can open up their own 529 and name the beneficiary as their grandchild. So a parent and a grandparent can each have a 529 with the same beneficiary listed.
Follow-up questions. Do the grandparents, let's say, for example, they have two grandchildren and they name grandchildren one and another, that grandchild number one doesn't go, can they name grandchildren two to be the beneficiary?
Yes. So with any 529 plan, you can always rename the beneficiary. And that's another really great advantage of this college savings tool is that you can rename it. It's not permanent. So for a grandchild or even a child, I'll use myself as an example. If my older son gets a full ride or ends up going to, well, you can use 529 for trade school, but let's just say he doesn't end up going for whatever reason, I can rename the beneficiary to my younger son. Another option that was changed recently under the Secure Act 2.0, which I think was in 2022, is that you can, if your child ends up not using those funds within the 529 plan, you can roll that into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. So you've already saved this money, put it aside for your child. Some parents really like having that option because it sets the child up for the future, and then they can also withdraw that money out of the Roth for a first-time home buyer, and there's some qualifying reasons why without penalty.
This interesting you mentioned that this neighbor that I was talking to you about that had the mother accountant, they actually overfunded their A&M expenses that they think. And so that's a viable option for them if they don't use all that. We've kind of answered the next question. What if my child or grandchild ends up not going to college, or they get a full ride for sports or academics and do not need the money?
Right. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. There are alternatives, and that's fairly new. So some of our viewers and audience may not have known that is an option. I think when that Secure 2.0 was passed, when the Secure Act 2.0 was passed, that was a really neat feature that they added to the 529 plans because that was preventing some people from funding those. Well, what if we don't need it? I don't want to take that 10% penalty to withdraw the funds for non-educational purposes. And so this is a neat way to get to keep those funds for your child outside of the 529 plan.
And so at the last resort, even if the child doesn't go to college, the grantor or the person setting it up can take it out and pay the 10% penalty on the earned earnings.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Good. One of our last questions, many parents feel pressure to fully fund their child's education, but they're also trying to save for retirement. How should families think about balancing those two goals?
So that's why at the beginning when I said to start small, and you can always build up over time, but not starting at all specifically for your child's education can really be a detriment when you get to the time when you need that money. So it's kind of similar to 401k when we say consistency over time builds and accumulates. It's the same for the 529. So, maybe you start with $50 a month in the 529 and you're only contributing, 4% to your company plan. Hopefully over time and as your career grows, your income will also increase and that will allow you to increase those contributions. But as you were mentioning earlier, those families that don't plan for these large educational expenses that are coming if your child does go to college, when you get to that point and you have nothing, that can be very hard and difficult. And so that's why we really try to educate our clients on planning. Another thing I will say is there has been a growing trend away from a traditional four-year university because that cost is so high and kids are graduating with so much debt. As I shared earlier, the price is high and it's only increasing. And so this 529 plan allows you to use the funds for a trade school or associate's degree or maybe an apprenticeship. It's a broad umbrella. It's not just specific to a four-year university. And who knows what it will look like in 10 years. But I think this is designed to be able to really help families save for education, whatever that looks like for their family.
That's a very good point. The fact of the matter is life is difficult balance when you talk about economics and where your savings and expenses. Those that have families, there's the present enjoyment of the present things and vacations and the obligations to help a child that you brought into this world be educated and able to earn money on their own. There's a lot of obligations, but doing nothing at all, kicking the can down the road, if you want to debt like the U.S. government, keep going. We are here to help you with that. For our listeners, Elizabeth is going through that. She's got that cliff coming down the road, and while she will probably shed some tears when she drops her oldest off at college, she'll shed more tears if she doesn't have any money.
Yeah, so, in conclusion, hopefully the takeaway from all this is that there are tools and resources to be able to help with that large expense. And with proper planning and discussions within your family, it can be very manageable and attainable, especially the earlier you start. And we're here to help you with that journey and process.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.